Welcome everyone, it's the Crypto Lark, and today I got to sit down with the team from Bolt, particularly Jamal, to talk about what they are doing to bring content to a wider world. Jamal, welcome.
Thank you, Lark. Good morning. Hi, everyone. From a distant, cold, and almost wet London. Good morning.
from gloomy London all the way down here to, of course, I know, slightly sunnier Wellington, if not a bit windier. Now, before we jump into the interview, just a quick note for everyone as well, and to thank the team over at Bolt for supporting the channel by sponsoring this video. And now, let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. Jamal, what is the elevator pitch? What are you guys doing?
Well, Bolt is a mobile-only short trending content platform that we launched about 2.5 years ago, principally to address the emerging markets. And the whole idea was basically to bring back consumers, users in the emerging markets back into the information highway, giving them access to premium content, a breadth of content, depth of content, a lot of which they've been excluded from, right? I mean, if you think about it, a lot of content was previously, in decades gone by, available on free to TV. Today, most premium content, news services, for instance, entertainment programs, the purview and the only are accessible by a certain demographic that are banked, that have a certain disposable income, and the masses throughout the world are actually excluded, right? And we felt that this was a market that needed addressing. It's underserved. They need access to information to elevate themselves above their current social standing and basically just get back on the grid, right? So we felt that role had and could be played by Bolt. And using the background that we have in broadcasting, digital proliferation, we brought it all together and basically formed the Bolt product platform. So we are already now in 4 countries. We've got a base of about 3.7 million active users. And what's exciting is we've just launched into Africa, a continent that I feel holds an incredible amount of potential. I think it was just waiting for the right product to come along to basically, release that potential.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, further afield, we're already prepping the ground to move into Latin America as well. So, we hope to be across the planet
Great.
in not too distant future. Yeah.
And now, what 4 countries are you already launched in?
So we used basically 4 test countries that we felt could provide us with a controlled environment to a degree, right? These 4 countries are basically Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Kenya. So representation across, it's not random, it's representation across a number of regions where we have very large underserved populations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in an environment where there's a lot of pent-up demand, we know that there are some services out there, but we can see where their shortcomings are. So we've actually come in to basically address the market, address where the product gaps are, and have basically put out services to the general public. So we've been going for about just over 2 years now, and it's been fantastic, really.
Nice. And so now is the transition actually from your existing product, which is working,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, you got a lot of people who are
Yep.
supporting you as a base,
Yep.
into an even more streamlined base. Now, the
Uh-huh.
one thing I thought was really interesting here, and I wanted to kind of point out, you mentioned the idea of the shorter videos, and that I think comes
Yes.
into our conversation around bandwidth. So can you
Yes.
explain for anyone out there who might not be aware of this problem, what is the bandwidth problem and how are you working to address that?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually something that us users of telco services in the more developed markets take for granted, right? A lot of us are on what we call postpaid plans, and we have a certain data allowance every month. We either use it or we don't use it, and then that rolls into the next month. So we don't, and to top that off, we all have quite a lot of access to Wi-Fi as well. So we kind of take that bandwidth, accessibility and availability for granted, right? Users in the developing markets or emerging markets have the problem of data being relatively more expensive for them. So I would say today about 97, 98% of our users are actually prepaid phone users or pay as you go, right? So the behaviors are, they'll top up their phones when they actually have some money. So the thing with this kind of payment model for data, it's very, very expensive. And an unknown fact to a lot of your viewers out there, Lark, is that telcos make the most money or highest amount of ARPU actually from prepaid users, right?
Really
Because it's so
interesting.
expensive. Yeah, absolutely. So we felt that, the content, and this was also from our studies over the last 2 years, that the content to capture the imagination and attention of these users who are data sensitive had to be short. They had to be short, they had to be punchy, and they had to get to the point very, very quickly, right? So, over the period of the 2 years, our long form content, we've actually started shortening them. Interestingly enough, we also have live channels, right? And you're wondering, hey, you said short trending content, why a live channel? And here's the thing, we noticed that there was a very, very high propensity for our users to dip in and out of live channels. 2 minutes, 3 minutes at a time, they come out, and then they come in later at the day to come in for another 3 to 4 minutes, hoping to catch something. There's that romance, of hoping to catch at some point
The
something
breaking
interesting on
news.
a live channel. Exactly. Exactly. So we have a combination of the two. And what's interesting is, we realize that as we're scaling the world, right, we can't do everything ourselves. We're not a Netflix, nor do we intend to be, who goes out there and raises billions of dollars to produce original content. So what we're going to do is actually harness the power of the community. So we've started a program in Kenya. It's called the Marafiki program, where we are actually onboarding local content producers, independents, who've been struggling, to try and make a breakthrough on other platforms such as YouTube to make, a commercial proposition of it.
Hmm.
Content's fantastic, lots of followers. So we said, look, guys, come on to us, right? We have a way to monetize for you. We have a way to, to promote you and showcase you. Your content matters, right? So that's going to be a very, very powerful proposition, the third arm to the content that we're already offering. So, we're really looking forward to that development.
Yeah, empowering content creators all over the world. That's amazing. And I know that there's a lot of
Yeah.
blockchain projects that are working to do that
Hmm.
for, move people away from YouTube a little bit.
Yeah.
But actually, YouTube's not even the best fit. As we mentioned, the bandwidth problem, right? There's
Yeah.
YouTube's kind of best for everything. And so those videos, downloading those, watching those can be very, very
Yeah.
data intensive, which doesn't fit best. Not to mention
Yeah.
that, let's imagine I'm a, a Kenyan blogger and well, the TV channels aren't going to have me because they're probably really centralized and hard to get into.
Mm.
And then, the YouTube
Yeah.
audience for my language group might be quite small. But if there's
Yes.
a platform specifically catering for me, that could really empower communities, which is cool.
Spot on. Spot on. I mean, that's absolutely it, actually. And you touch on the point that a couple of other companies basically have made attempts at doing this. But I think, with all due respect to them, I think there is not sufficient enough understanding of how the broadcast ecosystem works. And that's where I think the strength of the Bolt team comes. We come with more than 25 years of traditional broadcast experience. So we kind of know what works, what doesn't work, where the pressure points are. We're not looking at it with rose-tinted glasses. We know where the problems are. And the thing is, when our digital team joined us with blockchain experience, obviously, it gave us the means, right, to have the method to go out there and disrupt the current monopolies that actually exist in the content and media industry, actually. So, we saw that as almost an aha moment, really, to solve a problem that we've known for 20, 25 years, actually. So, really,
overthrowing these monopolies is a big thing. I remember watching, I can't remember the lady's name right now, but she's a former finance minister of Nigeria, and she was talking about, well, a few years ago in Nigeria, there was only a few thousand phones in the entire country, like 190 million people, until the mobile phone companies were able to come in. And obviously, it's been explosive growth in that particular market, but obviously we're still dealing with that centralized mobile phone services and centralized data providers and, you know, legacy systems essentially, and these underdeveloped regions are going to just leapfrog this old infrastructure with new technology, which is really exciting. And now that brings me to my next question is the focus here is on mobile. Why is the focus so much on mobile? I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but why is that mobile focus so important for these you know, developing regions of the world?
Yeah, I mean, a very, very pragmatic, very practical reason, really. I mean, there are more mobile phones than TV sets, right? So, you know, in the countries that we're operating in, take Indonesia, for instance, right? About 45% of the population actually have not one, but two phones. so it's incredible. Some of them don't have TV sets, but they have two mobile phones, right? So it's just the pure proliferation of mobile handsets, really, because it you know, allows them to basically access social media, surf the net, talk, obviously text, on the go, right? Most of them have jobs that keep them out the whole day from morning to night. And really, the only point of connection is actually the mobile phone. And the thing is, mobile gives them access to a lot of things that otherwise they would not have. Because along with the mobile comes the connectivity, right? So that allows them to connect to, you know, the world outside, to get access to the stuff they need. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of them can't even afford to buy a TV set at home, right? A TV set would probably be in a communal area that they gather in, you know, once every couple of days to share a drink, talk to friends, and kind of stare up and look at the TV. But the personal experience is a handset that's in their hands. And the mobile handset, in particular, if we think about Africa, has just transcended everything, right? It's allowed banking to happen on the go, obviously access to information, education, and health services. So in a lot of the developing markets, the handset is really the leapfrog and a quantum leap into the future. So for us, it was, you know, it was almost a no-brainer, right? Why would we focus on TVs when, as a number, handsets outnumber TV sets probably 10 to 1, right? Also, another practical reason is that, you know, I've been a TV guy for many, many years. Access and availability of content on mobile is so much more affordable than, you know, licensing it for TV, right? So, you know, we're able to pass on those savings and the easier access to content to our users, really. So it was, yeah, for these two practical reasons.
Again, skipping the legacy systems. And I think one of the big things is that incomes in a lot of these countries, you know, it's okay for the people who live there. Prices are cheaper, everything's different, economies of scale, all these different things. But a mobile phone is affordable. People can afford 20, 30, 40 bucks to get a mobile phone that has basic functionalities for accessing the internet. But they can't afford a laptop that costs $500 or a big old desktop computer that costs $1,000 or $2,000. That's just totally out of their budget. And that's part of the mobile phone revolution. Now, we've talked a little bit about the other video services and how, you know, you're going to kind of be able to jump past these, but YouTube is really good at making money. So how is Bolt going to make money?
Well, here's the thing, right? I mean, YouTube is good at what it does, right? So credit to them. I don't think they're doing enough, right? You know, the model is very lopsided. Obviously, it is, you know, a lot of the revenue is obviously kept by the corporate owner. Very little passes on to the content producers. And I feel for them, right? I've been working with content producers for decades, and I'm looking decades on. How has their lot improved? It hasn't, right? Most of them are doing it either as out of their interest or as a vanity project, right? So there's no likelihood you're going to be able to quit your day job. So, ours is, and that's where the, another monopoly lies, right? So our intent basically is to run the whole platform, obviously on the blockchain, be transparent with our content producers by operating on a smart contract. So they can actually see, how many viewers are coming in to actually view their content and be rewarded accordingly and directly. So the formula is there, it's very transparent, and it's there for all to see. You perform, the numbers are there, right? There's no short changing. And it's not just that. That's obviously the monetization part. We internally are also setting up systems to actually train these content producers to elevate them to the next level, really. A lot of them do it as an enthusiast project, right? So what we want to do slowly but surely is onboard these guys to start producing better material of a more professional quality, right? So maybe one day, they'll transcend us and move on elsewhere, but we would have done our jobs, right? So I think the idea is not just to get them onto Bolt and to allow them to commercially make money, but it's also to help them improve as well, right? If you will, make them stars, really. So this is a program we started in Kenya. We are doing the same in Malaysia. And we are actually, we've identified another Southeast Asian country to also start this program in. Our hope is that, this is going to be a global proposition. But what we've done is set up 3 countries where we are going to run these as test programs, right? So that, we establish a formula and then be able to scale it.
Very, very cool. Now, in terms of maybe some more, I guess, ethical, theoretical, whatever you might want to call them, ideas, freedom of speech. How do you ensure that there's not undue censorship happening on the platform?
Fantastic question. I think there's always a balance to be struck, right? It saddens me, with what I'm seeing out there today. I won't quote names, but we see so many platforms who are not taking their responsibility seriously enough. And the thing with users, and particularly users in the developing markets, right? Because they don't have access to a lot of information, the assumption is that when a piece of content is published on a social media channel, it must be true, right? And, for me, where does the owner of that content come in to exercise their responsibility, right? I'm not talking about, censorship or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that. But I'm saying if something is clearly untrue, you've got to do something about it, right? You can't allow it to proliferate. So here's where, we're going to do things differently. Obviously, with content that we're aggregating, curating, and publishing, that's one. There's also content, as I've just spoken, that's coming in from our users as well. So we're allowing that to be published on our platform, allowing it to be seen and be viewed and commented on by our users. But we're adding a feature in whereby the community actually gets to validate that content and actually gets rewarded for validating that content, right? So there are 2 things that we require from the publisher: a declaration of the source of that content that increases their trust level, and then the validation of the community to vote on the content to say whether they think it's trustworthy or not. Then obviously it's dependent on the viewer to then decide if they want to believe it or not, right? Okay, this is a 70% rating on the trust meter. I think I can believe that, right? Or this is only 20%. Oh, I'm not touching that, right? So we're not censoring it. So we're allowing the community to get involved to decide if, they want to support it. So I think this is about throwing the power back to the people, really, to decide what they think they can believe and what they can't believe. It's not going to be 100%, but it's going a long way towards democratizing the whole process, I think.
I think we can look at the Wikipedia experience and kind of understand that people
Absolutely.
are actually really interested in being part of these communities. And a lot
Oh,
of the,
absolutely.
like YouTube, for example, YouTube, we love you. We know you're listening. We love you, YouTube. So please, but there's a lack of engagement with community, right? I mean,
Yes.
and for me as a content creator, people write comments, I respond to the comments, but they quickly get lost down the screen. And so
Yes.
that
Yeah.
actual engagement level kind of goes away to an extent. And actually, by inviting people into like, hey, you can actually be curating content and not just
Hmm.
curating the content, but actually to
Yeah.
get a slight monetary reward for it, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Now,
we think that's going to go a long way. Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it will definitely work on building these communities, especially in those regions. In terms
Yeah.
of privacy, data,
Yeah.
how are you going to keep the data secure, people's private user data secure?
So we're GDPR compliant. Where we have one of our offices here, which is based in the UK. We've signed up to the whole GDPR code, and we've established secure systems where, well, for instance, we don't hold a lot of consumer data, to be frank, to begin with, right? So we generally have consumption behavior. We have some registration details. And that's pretty much it, really. A lot of the data that's coming through, or of users that are coming through to us, are actually held by their telco provider. It's not really us. So on our end, we're GDPR compliant, and I think we have a pretty solid infrastructure to protect whatever little user data that we actually hold ourselves. So we've been testing these out actually over the last three months, and I'm quite happy with what I'm seeing so far. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, initially, you're
Yeah.
going to be launching as an ERC20 token on the Ethereum blockchain,
Yeah.
but the plan is to be using Zilliqa, which is one of the reasons I was really excited to talk to you guys. Not just all the
Yeah.
other stuff, that's also really, really exciting, but to see projects actually planning to build on
Yes.
Zilliqa. I think that's really,
Yes.
really cool.
Yeah.
Why Zilliqa? There's so many other
Well,
blockchains. What brought you to them?
well, um, you know, they're sitting really close to us. No, well, that's true. But also the fact that Crystal, my co-founder, is actually an advisor to Zilliqa as well. So, there was easy access to development resources. It was easy to have collaborative chats. And, they are a protocol which, at the end of the day, requires applications,
Mm-hmm.
which, deliver transactions, really. So, I think, from the onset, saw the potential that we held, because it wasn't just a theory. We weren't just a dApp that was in white paper stage. We're actually a live project already, right? With existing users, existing transactions, which were just going to grow. So, it made a lot of sense for them. And I think, on a more practical level, we're actually really close physically to them. They're about 10-minute drive, I think, away from us. So, we go back and forth, and there's lots of chats between the two teams. So, we're very, very optimistic about Zilliqa, because we potentially are going to have a lot of events that are going to require a lot of processing throughput, right? And at this juncture, I think only Zilliqa is going to be able to meet that kind of volume. So it was a natural partnership, I think, and we're waiting for the mainnet to go live, but we're already testing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're probably looking at January, which is not a million miles away.
No, not that far away at all. Your local
Yeah.
blockchain shop. Well, Zilliqa's
Yes.
technology is certainly impressive anyway, so I can certainly
Yeah.
understand it. Now, that's really cool. I like the Zilliqa thing. And you're
Yeah.
also going to be partnering up with Switcheo.
Yes.
Now, that's pretty cool too. That will be your first exchange listing, correct?
Yes, correct. So again, Switcheo have been fundamental and instrumental to our development on the blockchain. I mean, they've had a lot of lead time compared to us about developing on the blockchain. So we've been collaborating with their development team quite a fair bit, sharing know-how, sharing knowledge. We've even participated in events together. So there's a good natural synergy, and Switch's founders Ivan and Jack actually advisors on Bolt as well. So technical advisors. So again, call it yeah, close, but I'd rather be close than distant. So yeah, it's they're going to be our first listing, not the only one. We are already very well progressed in so far as looking at a couple of other major exchanges as well. Obviously, we're taking a very practical view of concentrating liquidity in a couple of exchanges, not spreading ourselves too thin. But I think it's going to be a good balance, right, of exchanges that have a different appeal, different user interface, shall we say, in terms of access and convertibility to other tokens and fiat. So yeah, Switchers already on our roadmap, and it's going to be quite quick actually after our TGE and the tokens are issued, and then a larger one will be not long after that in terms of a listing. So really excited about it.
Very, very cool. That's great to have that lined up. I mean, for so many tokens that are new issued tokens, it takes them a while to actually sort that out. So it's good that that's what's lined up, and it's what for anyone who hasn't used it is great. It's a nice, easy user interface, and it's a pleasurable experience over there on Switch.io. Now, speaking of tokens, what is the purpose of the Bolt token?
This is a big thing for us, right? I got asked in an AMA yesterday, what's the price of the token going to be after it's issued? I said, well, no, let's not go that direction. I think the more fundamental question is, what's the value of the token? The underlying value of the token, we see it from day one as being its utility. Because if you remember what I was saying earlier, we saw it as a means of disruption of the business model, right? Of the industry. And the whole idea is just its utility. So for one thing, obviously there's a reward system that we intend to use it for our content producers. Also, obviously, for our community participants who come in, validate content, contribute content, comment on content, and so on. So, we want to be able to reward them with the tokens as well. Plus, we've, interestingly enough, got a number of institutional partners, right? Because remember, we're already operating as a business. We've got institutional partners who are adopting the token as a reward system to bring their users onto Bolt, right? Right. So yesterday, actually, and a lot of our community may not even have read this, we've already demonstrated our first use case. So I think it was in a Medium post, either posted yesterday or going to be posted today. So I'm not sure how many cricket enthusiasts you have out there. You might be, Lark, because you're in New Zealand. So basically, we have the rights to broadcast the ICC 2019 Cricket World Cup next year.
Ah, nice.
And we've announced that it's going to be a token-only event. So although previously we would accept, fiat as payment for entry into the service, increasingly we're going to make high-velocity events only token-based, right? So there's a synergy here where we're using it for high-volume events. We're distributing it to our community, and then we have corporates who are coming in to use it as a program to onboard to their users onto the Bolt service, right? So the whole idea here is utility. And what we want to do, particularly for the emerging markets, right, is allow this, to be a way to uplift our community, especially those who are producing content, right? Because they don't make very much money. They have very little access to jobs and so on, right? And disposable income is low. So we see this, an enterprise and endeavor as a means basically for them to elevate themselves up the social ladder. So, this is not just theory. As I said, we've already announced that We are, making the World Cup, Cricket World Cup token-only event. So that's going to create serious FOMO for the tokens. And, people are just going to go out there and buy them.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah.
Well,
So,
personally, I'm
yeah.
not the world's biggest cricket fan, but it's quite big here in New Zealand, and I think that getting such a big sports event like that, that's going to be
Yeah.
huge. That's going to be huge. There'll be
Yeah,
people all over watching that and using bolts
exactly.
to do it, which is great without a doubt.
Yeah.
And you're also
Yeah.
doing a token buyback program.
Yeah.
So how many tokens are going
So
to be bought back? Can you tell us how that's going to work?
we haven't so there's two methods, right, where we're going to do a buyback. So one, we have identified actually in our white paper that every year, based upon a certain percentage of the net profit of the company, we're actually going to use a percentage of that net profit to actually do a buyback of tokens, right? That we will basically rub out. So that's one buyback scenario that we've put out. The second one is where, okay, if you think about it, right, especially in the developing markets, okay, so we have a lot of users who have tokens. What are they going to do with it, right? So we are actually going to institute a buyback program from holders of the tokens at periodic points of time throughout each quarter, right? So this allows them basically to cash in their tokens for fiat to basically, be able to afford daily essentials, buy stuff, and so on. So these are the two scenarios that we see at this point of time where we would institute the buyback, and that's already being implemented actually. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, I want to touch a little bit on the team here. So, obviously,
Hmm.
we've talked a little bit about Crystal already. I mean, she's got some amazing experience across the crypto scene,
Yep.
but we've only got about 8 team members currently on the website. Are there more team members that are kind of,
Oh yeah.
developers and stuff that are
Oh
just
yeah.
not listed there? And if so, how big
Yes.
is the team?
Yeah, so we've got a team of 30 people already. And yes, this is, we're actually in the midst of, in the next couple of days, you're going to see the new website up actually. So we've been working on a revamp for the last couple of weeks. And I think by next week, early next week, it'll go live. So that'll be reflecting the rest of our team members. But as of now, we've got 30 people and a lot of them with very, very interesting backgrounds, I feel, right? Myself, not that I'm tooting my own trumpet, I've got a substantial amount of broadcast experience, and that's what I bring to the table, the know-how of how to do this, what to avoid, what not to do really, and how to do it best. Obviously, we've got Crystal, who we talked about briefly, who's my co-founder, an extraordinary lady, really. Spent time with Twitter, leading the content team for Asia Pac, was with Samsung, was with Brandwatch, Havas Media Group, and so on. Further down along the line, we've got Elliot Talbot, who is ex Facebook, a really, really interesting guy who's joined our team. Elliot actually worked and was one of the leading managers for the Facebook drone project, actually. And you think, drone project? What's that got to do with both? Well, well, the thing is, the drone project was about addressing access of internet into the developing markets, if you think about it. So there's actually a very, very direct correlation to what we're doing. So there's a deep understanding of reaching out to these communities, despite how far-flung they are. And then obviously we've got people like Julian Jackson, our Chief Content Officer, who was ex-ESPN, Star Sports. We've got Joshua Ignatius, our Chief Data Scientist, who's an adjunct professor at Warwick University. We've got Lynn Morales, ex-Facebook, ex-Twitter as well. We've got Thomas Alexander, who's got a stellar background in marketing. So we've got a very, very solid team, I think, and we are continuing to attract some fantastic talent. I'd like to think, it's because how interesting the project is that they would, step away from Facebook or Google or YouTube, to come on board and join us on this exciting journey. So we've got 30 people now spread across London, the London office, Singapore office, Kuala Lumpur, our broadcast hub. We've got an office now in Nairobi, Kenya, where we've just launched, and we're looking at another location in Europe, possibly. So 30 full-time, and we have also got a production team that's based out in California.
Wow.
Yeah.
Team meetings must be difficult. Getting everyone in the same time zone together.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but you know what? I think somehow or other we've made it work because we're practically working 24/7 really. So when one time zone finishes, we do a handoff, and then the work turns around, and we see it first thing in the morning the next day. So we've kind of made it work, which is fantastic.
It's a global
Yeah,
project. Of course, it has to be.
well,
You have people everywhere
absolutely.
ready to react to any kind of situations maybe
Hmm.
happening and to provide that coverage everywhere, essentially.
Yes.
Now, final question here for you. What can we expect from Bolt in 2019? What are the key milestones that we're looking for?
Well, for me, definitely uh, availability of the service and access to consumers in many more markets. And we've already, beyond the 4 that I spoke about earlier, already lined up another 10 territories. So we're launching a new territory practically every month, right? So by 2019, next year, the footprint would have significantly, expanded beyond what it is today.
Hmm.
So I think the second thing, for me, that would be the X factor for the business is, the adoption of the token and, accepting it and using it as a normal means of exchange of goods and services, really. For me, that's really, really important because, with the tokens, it's all about adoption and use, right?
Hmm.
So I want, my dream is to see it increase beyond where it is today. We already have adoption and acceptance from our users in Kenya who are producing content, which is a great start. We've got an institution or a couple of institutions that we are going to announce in the next couple of weeks that are adopting the token.
Hmm.
And one of them is going to be a real surprise. So, as I say, watch the space. And the third, I think, just to probably wrap up, is beyond the emerging markets, I think we have content that appeals to everyone everywhere, even in the more established and more developed countries, right? So my hope is that, we would establish a beachhead in some of the more developed countries as well by the end of next year. So, a lot to do, but, we've got the will, we've got the manpower, and we've got the know-how to get it done.
And you got the idea. That's a big
Yeah.
part of it. Really exciting project, Jamal. If anybody wants more information on that, there's going to be links down below in the description, so you can go over and check out the website, read the white paper, check out their social media, and see what they're up to on a regular basis. Thank you so much for coming on today and telling everyone about what is going on over at Bolt.
Thank you, Lark. Appreciate the time, and thanks everyone for watching and listening, and hope you join the community and the project. See you soon.